Hi everyone, I'm John Diamond, and along with me is my colleague Pete Bars. We're both Intuitive Solutions Architects from the United States-based team. While we're all faced with adjusting our lives and business models in these challenging times, we thought it would be valuable to compile and discuss some of the ways E&A can assist you in keeping your remote work environments operating optimally. Today, Pete and I will present the key areas for you to set up and manage using E&A to maximize your end users' performance for their business critical applications in a remote work environment. A few housekeeping items before we get into today's content. The call is on mute mode to eliminate any outside noise. Feel free to ask questions at any time via the chat panel. We will have time at the end to take questions that have been posted. We will be using the latest version of Intuitive Network Analytics, E&A 18, for our demonstration purposes. All of the features we are discussing today are found in E&A 18. If you're not already on E&A 18, we have a trial program now available, so you can take advantage of these VPN related features that I'll be showing you in a moment. More on that special trial program after the demonstration. So let's get started. Here's the agenda for what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to show you some thoughts on how to do some particularly relevant VPN service monitoring right at the moment. And that is then going to transition into Pete, giving you a rundown on how SurePath can help you right at the moment, and some ideas on some ways to do some monitoring of your WAN circuits that may be particularly relevant given the changes in your internet-related traffic that I'm sure all of you are experiencing right at the moment. So that said, let's go ahead and we'll take a look at what's been going on with VPN monitoring. Here is a dashboard that I created for the Park Place global E&A server that is monitoring our entire global infrastructure. As you can see from the map, we're actually spread around the world, and we've got a number of Cisco ASA devices acting as VPN devices, and you'll see them listed in the table below. I've instrumented the monitoring of the number of active sessions, and that's particularly relevant in context with the maximum number of sessions that each of these devices is able to support, because with everybody transitioning from working in offices to working from home, it's putting a significant strain on the enterprise VPN services, which were never initially configured to be able to cope with such a transition. So we're getting a lot of calls from our users, our customers at the moment, asking how they can go ahead and perform monitoring of their VPN devices to make sure they're not overloading. And that's really the main thing that we are focused on right at the moment. You'll see here that I've instrumented the maximum number of sessions per device, and we're also counting the number of unique users as well. Over here, I'm showing those metrics, in this case in the form of a stacked column chart, showing it over the last 7 days. And you'll see here Wednesday, Thursday, Friday last week, dipping down over the weekend, and then again being busy at the moment. We're in the middle of the Wednesday working day in the US East Coast. You'll see here that by stacking these metrics from each of the VPN devices, we're getting a total number of users accessing remotely. So we are knocking on 1,000 globally right at the moment. Now, I've got other ways of showing this. Stacking the data in columns is one approach. That's what it looks like when it's a stacked area chart. But also, if you plot those individually without stacking them, then what you will notice, if you look at this yellow line, is that we are hitting flatlining. Hitting 300, that is actually this device here. We're currently with 300 sessions active, 100% utilized. We've got 300 available. Nobody else can log in. Anybody else trying to log into that device is going to be denied. See, right at the moment, we are flatlining over here. These are hyperlinks from the table. So if I were to hyperlink and click down on here, we've moved over to that device, and I've updated the summary dashboard for these firewalls, but only the firewalls. That's another thing you can do within ENA's dashboarding environment. You can configure your dashboards to provide different dashboards for different types of devices. So for the firewalls, I've switched out the usual events over time dashlet, which would go here, and I've put in simply a chart showing the number of active VPN sessions and the maximum. So you can see we're hitting the red line. So we know that that device here either needs to have its license extending to increase the number of VPN sessions, or people need to be moved off onto other devices, which is actually what we're doing. We are reallocating people to other devices. So that's the type of monitoring that will allow you to see the limits on your VPN and what it can achieve. That I performed by putting in 3 extra attributes through the user-defined attribute system. These are effectively temporary because right at the moment, Entuity has a development project that will, within the next 2 to 4 weeks, deliver extended VPN monitoring services on a multi-vendor basis that will allow multiple different vendors' VPN boxes to have very similar monitoring and give you this type of information. So watch out for that. That'll be as part of patch 1 for version 18. However, if you can't wait, we have produced 2 new tutorial videos. If you go to your online help from the main menu to help, if you go to the video section and go to video tutorials, then you'll find at the bottom of the list 2 brand new videos telling you all the steps needed on version 18, and in fact for version 17, if you're still running 17, to add the VPN session monitoring as user-defined attributes, and then some ideas in this second video on some dashboards, those that I've just shown you, and how to create particularly the table as an substitute into the summary dashboard for the firewalls. So those are equally applicable to version 17 and version 18. If you're using version prior to version 17 and still haven't upgraded, then you would still be able to achieve VPN monitoring, but the user interface would be different for that. But you've still got user-defined monitoring capabilities in there, so you could add it in as well. So that said, I'm now going to pass control over to Pete, who is going to tell you all about other things that you might want to take into account right at the moment.
Thanks, JD, and welcome everybody for today's session. And as I'm sharing my screen out, I think some of the things that JD spoke to as far as the changes in your workforce moving to a work-at-home type of scenario where they're dialing into your VPN and getting access to your critical applications from their home is certainly putting a different level of pressure on your network infrastructure. So monitoring VPN and that remote access is something that's critical. One of the other things that you want to pay attention to is because the profile of access to your applications is now changing, where historically people would be in the office and access your different applications. Now they're going to be doing this from home over either a dedicated VPN tunnel back into your infrastructure or possibly a split tunnel where some of their traffic goes directly out their internet access and some goes over the VPN. That's going to put a little bit different pressure on some of your internet circuits, some of your WAN circuits out of remote facilities, some of your primary internet circuits going out into the commodity internet. And because of that, those are 2 aspects that I'm going to pay attention to, both kind of the profile of change across your bandwidth and ways that you can leverage Intuity to look at a better visualization of access into some of those applications. So because the profile changes, obviously one thing that you want to be able to monitor is your WAN performance, your internet performance. And this is, I'm just showing this as kind of an example. This is available since Intuity 17 as a standard dashboard, just a top-end dashboard, being able to look across your entire network and see, what are the busiest top 5, top 10, top 20 interfaces that you've got. Now, this, in my view right here, I'm actually looking across my entire environment. Now, if I wanted to take a little better look and focus on just things like my primary internet circuits or my WAN circuits from remote locations, I could actually just take all of those circuits and put them in a view. So it'd be very easy for me to be able to build a view and have those components there. And then if I select that view, I'm going to actually just narrow down using the standard top-end dashboard on those interfaces. So this gives me a real-time look, whether or not I'm seeing some high utilization or some, I can generate alerts, certainly if I get above a threshold for utilization. So if I'm hitting capacity in some of these circuits, the top-end dashboard's a good way to take a look at this. Now I've got, if I'm looking at just interfaces, there's a bunch of these panels that I really don't care about. So what I did was I just created a custom dashboard that I can use as a heads-up display to look at those specific circuits. So again, I'm looking at all of the primary circuits that are in that view that I created, and I'm just using inbound, outbound utilization as a top-end view. But in addition to that, I've actually taken each one of my 3 circuits, because I've only got 3 that are feeding some of my primary locations, and I've added them into a combined inbound and outbound chart. So all the inbound traffic across each one of these. So if I wanted to be able to look just at things that are going on in New York, I can certainly highlight that. If I want to look at things just going on in California, I can highlight that. I'm looking at the last 7 days because I'd like to see some of that same cyclical nature that JD was showing you with the VPN access. And I'd like to be able to see if I'm getting some trending. So over 7 days, I can get an idea if I've got an upward trend in either inbound or outbound traffic. The reason I split it here, inbound and outbound, because you could actually do this circuit by circuit. You could have a dashlet that's for each one of your locations or each one of your WAN circuits. But the reason I split it inbound and outbound is because the profile could change where people are now working from home. I may see outbound traffic or inbound traffic change versus what the historic pattern was, where I might see outbound traffic not change. So splitting it this way might give you a little bit better visualization, but this is just one example, and I just used a custom dashboard to build this. Now if I take a look at this a little bit differently, one of the features within Intuity is the concept of service modeling. So this is a feature set that's been available, and a number of our customers certainly leverage this. So I have the ability to create a service model for each one of my remote sites, or I can create a service model for all of my internet circuits, or I can create a service model. I was talking with a customer yesterday who's got a service provider, and their service provider has a drop-off point in 2 facilities. So they have redundant data centers. They have internet access on each one of them. They use that to provide redundancy. So a service model would allow me to actually combine multiple circuits coming out of New York or Tampa or any one of my facilities. And as part of that model, I can actually visualize the aggregate traffic inbound and outbound. So I actually take all of the interfaces, I add all the traffic up together across those interfaces, and I look at a service definition and a service look for what that traffic is. Now, this type of a dashboard might actually be really helpful because in addition to looking at the individual circuits to see if they're hitting capacity, like I did in the previous slide or previous dashboard, I can actually look at everything coming out of a location to see if it's possibly trending upwards or hitting a limit. In addition to just visualizing this, I can actually put a threshold, a high and a low threshold against each one of these sites. So if I want to be notified if I get above 10 megabits per second, now I'm a ways away from that, but I could set any type of a threshold that I wanted to. And actually you can see here, I've actually got some incidents being generated because I have a threshold that says if I get above 6 megabits, generate a threshold and give me an alert. So again, this is more of a heads-up display to look at in aggregate traffic coming in and out of individual locations. Now, these are just a couple examples to be able to profile and be able to look at changes in internet behavior, again, all driven because you've now got a whole lot of employees or a whole lot of customers that are actually not working in the office but have moved to working from home. Now, looking at the actual network performance is one thing, but understanding how customers are actually accessing some of your cloud applications or even your on-premise applications is also important. And that's where SurePath can really play a good role for you and be a vital piece of your monitoring solution. SurePath gives you visibility into the latency, performance, and availability of accessing cloud applications. Now, I've got a SurePath path that is in this display right now, and I'm actually just looking at Google. So I'm pointing a path at google.com. I'm going over port 443. I'm checking it every 5 minutes, and I'm looking for high latency. Now, Google's just an example. Office 365 can be an example. SAP can be an example. Any of your cloud-based applications. You may have a web ordering site where people are placing orders for a retail site. All of these things can actually leverage a SurePath set of analytics that will say from a specific location, how well am I performing to get to my business sites? So for these critical applications, and actually in this case, you actually see that I do have some issues. So I'm testing these every 5 minutes, and I've actually got a number of issues where I've actually gone over a threshold. So I've got some high latency. And what's interesting, if I zoom in on this a little bit, you can see that I'm initiating my check to Google from inside of my network. This happens to be my Intuity server right here. But from here, I'm actually going over my service provider's network. And what's interesting is I've got a definite jump from 1 millisecond to 22 milliseconds on these two devices. And that's actually causing me higher latency all the way out to my application. Now, if you've got certain web applications that are not really written to handle high latency, you might actually have customers that are calling and complaining saying, I can't get to a specific application. SurePath can give you a good visualization to say and help you determine whether or not the problem is inside your network or inside your service provider's networks. Now, if I was a service provider, I might actually use SurePath to look at this and say, you know what, I've probably got some issues on these two devices. Now, just like organizations, service providers are now taking a tremendous amount of pressure based on everybody accessing information from home. And there's, I know Comcast is a service provider in my area, and they're going through a lot of growing phases right now because the pressure on the network is considerably higher than it was a month ago. So if I was Liquid Web in this case, I'd probably say that I might have some issues with performance on these two devices. So again, from a customer standpoint, this helps me answer the question, can my users get access to my cloud applications? Can my users get access to the cloud applications now that they're working from home? And I can track that over time. I can identify whether or not there's different routing behavior in these applications, if there's high latency in these applications, or even access to the application is being denied or just doesn't take, there's no response whatsoever. Now I'll just show you a couple more examples of that where, I'm just looking at, I'm looking at the BBC right now. Okay, so I'm saying, can I get to the BBC from my location? And this is just a little bit different look. I've collapsed a lot of the internet nodes, but you can see here that right now there is a problem going through the service provider's network. Now, I don't really pay too much attention to it in this case. What I really want to pay attention to is what's the overall latency getting to my application. And all I did to make this kind of visualization is in SurePath. If you take a look at the SurePath menu, you can go from horizontal to vertical layout, and you can collapse all of the internet nodes. So if I went back to the original kind of look, I can see all the internet nodes. But in my case, I'm really interested in looking at just the overall latency to the far end cloud applications right here. Now, you can see that I've had a problem for a period of time, but if I take a look at what's been going on, maybe somewhere around midnight, I didn't have as much of an issue. So that's just another look. Now, because SurePath is just another component within Intuity, and a SurePath path is another component that you add into the system, you can actually use those paths and generate custom dashboards. So this is just an example dashboard that I created. It allows me to see all of the paths that I've created in my system. If I want to take a look dynamically at any one of them to see their current state, all I need to do is select that. So paths can be part of custom dashboards. Paths can be part of views. They play a part in role-based access as well. And the final view that I'd like to show you is, how can you get visualization similar to what JD was talking about for VPN access, where the Google Map integration can tell you a story about VPN appliances that might be hitting, a threshold and being a problem in different locations. You can also use the Google Maps integration to say, in New York, I've got a path to Outlook 365 from my New York site. And by the way, I'm having a problem there right now because I've got latency going on. So I've got high latency in New York. I don't have any problems in Burbank or Tampa. So this is a real good heads-up display to say, focus here. I've got high path latency. If I took a look at Tampa or Burbank, I'd see nothing. But if I wanted to drill, this is a little bit small to take a look at, even though I can blow it up on the screen. And you see that I've got a problem right here. This is where I'm actually hitting latency. But if I wanted to see a little bit better picture, just click on the hyperlink right here and take a look at the path kind of in a full screen mode. And again, same thing here. Comcast is actually seeing a problem where I'm jumping from, over my latency threshold from 12 to 18 in this one segment. So I've been seeing problems over the course of the morning, or this box is probably under duress from a whole lot of different customers, but it's impacting my applications. I think with that, I'll turn it back over to JD.
Okay, thank you very much, Pete. I think it's time to switch over to questions and answers. Pat, what have we got in the way of questions?
We have a couple that came in over the chat panel, and the first one is, can we set thresholds on the custom attribute current number of VPN connections, and can we initiate an incident from that?
The answer is absolutely yes. And in fact, although you could set a threshold on the absolute number of sessions, and that if you had a single VPN box, then that might be what you want to do. In our case, we've got 12 of them, and they've got different numbers of licenses allocated to each. So what I've done is created a third attribute, which is the percentage of maximum. So it's the number of sessions that are active as a percentage of the maximum that's allowed. So that will take into account different allocations of licenses on different VPN devices. And then you can set the threshold against the percentage as opposed to the absolute number. I think that's probably a cleaner way to work because it means that it will adapt to differently configured devices. And in fact, what I've done with our own monitoring, I haven't just set one threshold. With user-defined polling, you can set 3 thresholds if you want. I've got a critical level set at 90%, a high level set at 80%, and a warning level set at 50%. So in fact, let me just show you that again, because what it allows me to do is then, we'll go through here, you'll see that map. I've filtered the incidents down. These are raising incidents, and these are only the session overload indicators. Here, I've got 4 different locations in the Northeast. I've got, this is hitting a warning level in our Marlborough office. If I look at what's going on here, there's a couple of offices near Cleveland. Both of them have hit critical levels. And here you are. That one's gone over 90%. It's 93. And of course, that one, which we looked at earlier, is up at 100%. So again, these are critical, which is why they're here. So absolutely, events and incidents are something that you can easily configure, and they're covered in the tutorial video that I pointed out earlier. So you're well covered there. Pat, do we have any other?
Yep. Can we do a SurePath using UDP protocol as well as using the SurePath agent?
No. SurePath, with the SurePath agent, it is a TCP-based test, specifically TCP, not UDP. And that, of course, means that it can make a connection, and it knows it's made a connection. UDP is a connectionless protocol, so you'd have to have some form of responder at the far end. But you can do UDP connection response testing using a UDP responder if you're using Cisco IPSLA, which is another technology that we support, although that doesn't trace the path. But the agent-based SurePath is the TCP technology. Do we have any other questions?
One is, there's already a VPN dashboard available in ENA. Doesn't that cover what we were talking about earlier today?
A little bit of yes and no on that one, actually, Pat. The current VPN dashboard in version 18 is actually specifically fed with Cisco IPsec statistics. So if you're using a technology from a vendor other than Cisco, it's not going to populate. And even if you're using Cisco, if you're using SSL VPNs, it won't populate. We have a project underway right at the moment that we're hoping to deliver within the next 2 to 4 weeks as part of version 18 patch 1, some multi-vendor support for these session metrics and some associated dashboards. So from that standpoint, within 2 to 4 weeks, we hope to have that formally in the product as a patch. But in the meantime, you can use the approach that is documented in those tutorial videos to add it yourself.
Okay, thanks, JD. And then along the VPN dashboard line, another question has come in. With the VPN sessions dashboard, can you combine 2 HA pairs to 1 number?
The answer would be yes, and basically use the approach that I've shown here. If you chart it, then you can stack either as a stacked column or a stacked area style chart, and the stacking will actually perform the aggregation. So that's the approach I would choose there.
Okay, thanks, JD. And then last question, looks like I'm not on ENA 18. Can I still take advantage of VPN monitoring or SurePath capabilities?
Okay, first of all, VPN monitoring, you would be able to add that using user-defined polling exactly according to the tutorial video that's just been posted if you're on 17 or 18. We had user-defined polling support before version 17. The UI is somewhat different, but the concept is in there, and you would still be able to implement that yourself using a user-defined polling. It's a lot more convenient, though, in ENA rather than the versions of 16.5 and earlier. On SurePath Agent, that is a brand new technology in version 18. You can't use version 17 or earlier and use the agent. However, we do realize that not everybody is up to version 18. And right at the moment, given everybody's other preoccupations on keeping everything up and running in the new world we live in, it is understood that you may not want to upgrade your production environment right now. We have made some allowances for that. And in fact, let's see if we've got a slide that will help us explain that. I think, yeah, here we go. We've actually got a special arrangement now that if you were to email Pat, you see her email at the bottom of the screen there, Pat O'Hara at Enturity.com. If you email Pat, she'll sort out a license for you, which will allow you to do up to a 90-day trial of SurePath right at the moment. And that could be done not on your production environment. You could do that on a separate installation performed in your lab, just on a dedicated server if you want, or VM. So that's something that you can perform. In reality, I'm doing my SurePath work on a laptop, not a server. So you could even install the whole thing on a reasonably specified laptop. On a Windows laptop. So have that as a thought. You may want to put that into your lab just in the short term, just so that you can experiment with SurePath to see what it can deliver for you. Is there anything else, Pat, that we can answer?
Nope, that's it on the questions. Thank you.
Okay, right. Well, thank you very much. Let's see what else. We've created, as I mentioned, 2 new videos. Do make sure you check those out. And remember, they are in the ENA Help Center. You can get to it either from the Help menu in ENA, or if you just go to the Enturity website, enturity.com, and go to the Support tab. If you go to ENA Help Center, you'll get to exactly the same place you would have done from the Help option in our user interface. There's a videos icon, bottom left-hand corner of this image on the screen at the moment, and that gives you access to our full archive of both tutorial videos and the Tech Talk videos as well. Okay, so the recording of this session will be sent out to you as soon as it's posted online. Should you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact your Enturity account manager. And it just leaves me to thank you for your time today. Please stay safe. We're here to help you maximize Enturity network analytics for remote management. So reach out to your Enturity account manager or appropriate BMC or Enturity support team for any questions you might have. Stay safe.